70-year-old Tom Brennan stood at the edge of the world, literally and figuratively. The retired marine biologist had spent the last 6 months traveling through increasingly remote parts of Alaska, seeking something he couldn't quite name. His wife of 45 years had died 2 years earlier. His children were scattered across the globe with families of their own, and his comfortable retirement in Seattle had begun to feel like a slow march toward irrelevance. Tom had always been drawn to extremes, the deepest ocean trenches, the most isolated research stations, the places where human presence was barely a whisper against the vastness of nature. Now, at 70, with his health still robust and his savings substantial, he had embarked on what he privately called his final expedition, a journey to find the most remote inhabited place in North America. That search had led him to Aurora Bay, a village so far north and so isolated that it didn't appear on most maps. Accessible only by small aircraft during the brief summer months or by dog sled in winter, Aurora Bay had been established in the 1920s as a weather station and had somehow survived decades of government budget cuts and population decline. When Tom's bush pilot, Jake Morrison, circled the village for landing, Tom was struck by how impossibly small and fragile it looked against the endless white expanse. "You sure about this, Doc?" Jake called over the engine noise. "I can't get back here until spring." "That's 8 months, minimum." Tom nodded firmly. He had prepared for this. Enough supplies to last a year, comprehensive medical kit, satellite communication equipment, and decades of experience living in harsh environments. What he hadn't prepared for was what Jake told him as they unloaded his gear. "Fair warning," Jake said, glancing around nervously. "This place is unusual. The last male resident died 5 years ago. It's just women now, about 15 of them. They've been managing on their own, but they're always cautious about outsiders. Don't take it personally if they're not immediately welcoming." As Jake's plane disappeared into the gray sky, Tom found himself alone on a snow-covered airstrip with his equipment and a growing sense that he had stumbled into something extraordinary. The village consisted of about 20 weathered buildings clustered around a central square, with smoke rising from several chimneys against the Arctic twilight. Tom shouldered his pack and walked toward the largest building, which appeared to be some sort of community center. Before he reached the door, it opened, and a woman emerged. She appeared to be in her 40s, with long dark hair streaked with premature gray and intelligent brown eyes that assessed him with obvious wariness. "You must be the scientist Jake radioed about," she said without preamble. "I'm Sarah Kovaluk, village coordinator. Jake said you wanted to stay the winter." Tom extended his hand. "Dr. Thomas Brennan, marine biologist. I'm researching climate change impacts on Arctic communities. I appreciate you allowing me to stay." Sarah shook his hand briefly, her grip firm and calloused. "We'll see about that. Come inside. The others will want to meet you." The community center was warm and surprisingly well-maintained, with solar panels visible through the windows and modern communication equipment along one wall. 15 women of various ages, from late teens to early 60s, had gathered around a large wooden table. Tom felt their collective gaze assessing him as Sarah made introductions. The demographics were striking. Dr. Elena Petrov, a 45-year-old meteorologist, had been stranded here 7 years earlier when her research project lost funding. Maria Santos, 38, was a former nurse from Anchorage who had come north seeking solitude after a difficult divorce. The youngest, Amy Thompson, 19, had been born in the village and had never lived anywhere else. The eldest, Martha Sinclair, 62, had been the village's unofficial leader for over 2 decades. She studied Tom with sharp blue eyes before speaking. "Dr. Brennan, we've survived here by being self-sufficient and cautious. What exactly do you bring to our community?" Tom had faced hostile scientific review boards and skeptical government officials, but somehow this group of Arctic women was more intimidating. "I bring research expertise, medical knowledge, and 40 years of experience in extreme environments. I also bring no agenda beyond learning how you've managed to thrive in one of the world's most challenging locations. Over the following weeks, Tom gradually earned the women's trust through actions rather than words. He fixed the village's temperamental wind generator using principles from his marine engineering background. His medical training proved invaluable when young Katie Wilson, 23, suffered a severe cut while ice fishing. His research skills helped them better understand weather patterns and optimize their hunting and fishing schedules. Most importantly, Tom approached the community with genuine respect and curiosity rather than paternalistic assumptions. He asked questions, listened to answers, and deferred to local expertise even when his scientific training suggested alternative approaches. The village's survival strategy was remarkable. The women had divided responsibilities based on skills and interests rather than traditional gender roles. Dr. Petrov monitored weather and maintained communications equipment. Maria Santos handled medical needs and managed their substantial supply of preserved foods. Martha Sinclair coordinated hunting and fishing expeditions with military-like precision. The younger women, Amy Thompson, Katie Wilson, and sisters Jessica and Rebecca Chun, 25 and 27 respectively, handled much of the physical labor, maintaining buildings, operating equipment, and processing game. Lisa Anderson, 34, managed their surprisingly sophisticated hydroponic growing operation in a converted warehouse. What struck Tom most was their lack of desperation or resignation. These women had created a functioning, even thriving, community through intelligence, cooperation, and determination. They weren't victims of circumstance, but masters of an incredibly difficult environment. As the long Arctic winter deepened, Tom found himself increasingly integrated into village life. He contributed to daily operations while conducting his research, documenting both climate impacts and the social dynamics that allowed this community to survive. His findings would eventually revolutionize understanding of human adaptation to extreme environments. But something unexpected was happening. At 70, Tom was experiencing feelings he hadn't had in decades. Several of the women, particularly Dr. Petrov, Maria Santos, and Martha Sinclair, had begun including him in conversations and activities that went beyond practical cooperation. There was an undercurrent of something more personal developing. The breakthrough came during a particularly severe blizzard in February. Tom and Dr. Petrov had been monitoring weather equipment when the storm intensified beyond their expectations. They were forced to shelter in the meteorological station for 3 days, sharing close quarters and deep conversations about life, loss, and dreams deferred. Tom, Elena said on their second night, as they huddled around a small heater, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Why did you really come here? The climate research is legitimate, but there's something else, isn't there?" Tom considered his answer carefully. "My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. We had a good marriage, raised 3 children, built successful careers. But after she died, I realized I had never really tested myself, never pushed beyond comfortable boundaries. I came here to find out who I am when everything familiar is stripped away." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "And what have you discovered?" "That I'm capable of more than I imagined. That age doesn't necessarily mean decline. And that I've never lived in a community where I felt so necessary." Elena moved closer to him. "Tom, I need to tell you something. The women have been talking. About you. About the future of this village. We've survived as a community of women, but survival isn't the same as thriving. We've been wondering if you might consider staying permanently." Tom felt his heart racing. "Elena, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that we explore whether you might become not just a temporary resident, but a permanent member of our community. All of us. As partners, as family." The conversation that followed was unlike anything in Tom's experience. Elena explained that the village women had spent months observing and discussing his presence. They had concluded that Tom's integration into their community had made them stronger, not weaker. More importantly, several of them had developed genuine romantic feelings for him. In traditional societies, Elena continued, powerful men often had multiple wives. But we're not traditional in that sense. We're proposing something different, a partnership where you would be committed to all of us, and we to you, but where each relationship would develop naturally based on genuine connection. Tom was stunned. Elena, I'm 70 years old. The idea that multiple women would wanna, it seems impossible. Age is just numbers, Tom. You're healthy, intelligent, caring, and you've proven yourself capable of contributing meaningfully to our survival. More than that, you've shown respect for our independence and capabilities. That's attractive to any woman, regardless of age. Over the following weeks, similar conversations took place with other women in the village. Not all were interested in romantic relationships. Some saw Tom more as a father figure or valued colleague. But 5 women, Elena Petrov, Maria Santos, Martha Sinclair, Lisa Anderson, and surprisingly, Rebecca Chun, expressed genuine interest in exploring deeper connections. The proposal that emerged was complex but carefully considered. Tom would commit to the village permanently, contributing his skills and resources to their collective survival and prosperity. The 5 women interested in romantic relationships would essentially become his wives, though the specific nature of each relationship would evolve organically. This isn't about ownership or traditional patriarchy, Martha Sinclair explained during a community meeting. This is about creating family bonds that make our community stronger and more sustainable. Tom brings genetic diversity, additional skills, and emotional partnerships that several of us want. The arrangement required extensive discussion and negotiation. Tom insisted on legal protections for all the women and formal agreements about property ownership, decision-making processes, and potential future scenarios. He liquidated his assets in Seattle and transferred substantial funds to community accounts, ensuring the village's long-term financial security. The marriage ceremony took place during the spring solstice, with the entire community participating. It was more commitment ceremony than traditional wedding, emphasizing Tom's integration into the community and his partnerships with the 5 women who had chosen to link their lives with his. Tom, now 71, found himself in the extraordinary position of being married to 5 remarkable women in one of the world's most isolated communities. The relationships were complex and unique. Elena shared his intellectual interests and scientific background. Maria provided medical expertise and nurturing care. Martha offered leadership experience and practical wisdom. Lisa brought energy and innovation, and Rebecca contributed youth and optimism. The most surprising development came 8 months later when Maria announced she was pregnant. At 39, she had assumed her childbearing years were ending, but the improved nutrition and reduced stress of their stable community had apparently restored her fertility. The news sent shockwaves through the village and prompted extensive discussions about child-rearing in their unique circumstances. Tom, at 72, was about to become a father again after thinking that chapter of his life was permanently closed. The pregnancy proceeded smoothly under Maria's own medical supervision, supplemented by regular consultations via satellite with specialists in Anchorage. The baby, a healthy boy they named Arctic, after the region that had brought them together, was born during the Aurora season. His arrival was celebrated by the entire community as a symbol of their successful adaptation and future sustainability. But Arctic wouldn't be an only child for long. Within a year, both Elena and Rebecca were pregnant. The village, which had been slowly dying from lack of population, was suddenly experiencing a baby boom. Tom, now 73, found himself the father of 3 infants and stepfather figure to Amy Thompson, who had never known a stable male presence in her life. The practical challenges of raising children in such an isolated environment were substantial, but the community's cooperative structure proved ideal for childcare. Multiple mothers and aunts shared responsibilities, ensuring constant supervision and diverse influences on the children's development. Tom's scientific background proved invaluable in documenting the children's development in this unique environment. His research on human adaptation to extreme climates expanded to include childhood development, contributing to scientific understanding of human resilience and adaptability. The village's transformation under Tom's influence was remarkable. His engineering skills and financial resources allowed them to upgrade their infrastructure significantly. Solar power systems were expanded, communication equipment was modernized, and food production capabilities were enhanced through improved hydroponic systems and greenhouse construction. More importantly, Tom's presence had shifted the village from survival mode to growth mode. The women's skills and knowledge, combined with his resources and expertise, created a model of sustainable Arctic living that attracted attention from researchers and government officials. The children grew up trilingual, English, Inuktitut, which several of the women spoke, and what Tom jokingly called Arctic, their own blend of technical terminology and local expressions. They were remarkably adaptable, equally comfortable with satellite internet and traditional hunting techniques. Education was a constant challenge and opportunity. Tom and Elena developed curriculum that combined traditional academic subjects with practical Arctic survival skills. The children learned calculus and caribou tracking with equal emphasis, preparing them to thrive whether they chose to remain in Aurora Bay or venture into the wider world. As the years passed, Tom's health remained surprisingly robust. The physical demands of Arctic living, combined with the emotional satisfaction of his large, unconventional family, seemed to energize rather than exhaust him. Regular medical monitoring via satellite telemedicine and annual visits from traveling medical professionals ensured any health issues were addressed promptly. The village's reputation grew as their success story spread. Documentaries were made, academic papers published, and government officials began citing Aurora Bay as a model for sustainable Arctic development. Tom and the women carefully managed this attention, welcoming researchers and visitors who could contribute to their community while protecting their privacy and autonomy. By Tom's 78th birthday, Aurora Bay had tripled in population. The 3 boys he had fathered were joined by 2 girls born to Lisa and Martha, creating a new generation that would carry the community forward. Several of the original women had also formed relationships with carefully selected new male residents, balancing the community's gender dynamics. The economic model they had developed was remarkably successful. Combination of traditional subsistence activities, modern technology consulting, Tom's expertise was in high demand via satellite communications, and selective ecotourism provided multiple income streams. The community had achieved true sustainability, environmental, economic, and social. Tom's transformation from retired widower to Arctic patriarch was complete but ongoing. He had found purpose, family, and adventure in the last place anyone would have expected. His scientific contributions to understanding human adaptation had earned international recognition, but his personal satisfaction came from the daily rhythms of family life in one of Earth's most challenging environments. The children represented the ultimate success of this unlikely experiment. They were confident, capable, and culturally sophisticated despite, or perhaps because of, their isolated upbringing. They understood both cutting-edge technology and ancient survival techniques, spoke multiple languages, and possessed a global perspective informed by their unique local experience. As Tom approached his 80th birthday, he often reflected on the series of decisions that had led him to Aurora Bay. The choice to leave comfortable retirement for Arctic isolation had seemed like folly to many, but it had resulted in the most fulfilling period of his life. The village that had been dying when he arrived was now thriving, with a growing population, sustainable economy, and international reputation as a model of human adaptation. The women who had welcomed him cautiously had become his partners in creating something unprecedented, a truly egalitarian community that balanced individual autonomy with collective responsibility. Most remarkably, Tom had discovered that age was indeed just a number when combined with purpose, health, and love. At nearly 80, he was actively parenting young children, contributing to scientific knowledge, and helping lead a community that challenged assumptions about human potential in extreme environments. The aurora dancing overhead on clear winter nights had become a metaphor for Tom's late-life renaissance. Like those mysterious lights, his happiness in Aurora Bay had appeared unexpectedly, illuminated possibilities he had never imagined, and created beauty in the darkness of what could have been a lonely decline. Aurora Bay's success story continues to inspire discussions about alternative community models, sustainable development, and the potential for human happiness outside conventional social structures. Tom Brennan's journey from Seattle retiree to Arctic patriarch demonstrates that adventure, love, and family can flourish at any age for those bold enough to embrace the unexpected and wise enough to recognize opportunity when it appears in the most unlikely places. The children playing in the endless summer light or learning to navigate by Aurora in the winter darkness represent more than just Tom's biological legacy. They embody the possibility of human adaptation, the power of community cooperation, and the hope that isolated places and unconventional families can not only survive, but thrive in an increasingly connected, yet divided world.